Hey everyone, welcome back to another tutorial on Spring Boot with Cursor. In the last tutorial, I showed you guys how to implement the basic authentication with Spring Security, the username and password based authentication with JWT actually. So now in this tutorial, I'll show you how to implement a API which will handle the document upload. So since our goal is to implement a minimal viable product for document management system, now in this tutorial, I'll show you how to implement the fundamental API of uploading file. So as a review, here is our authentication API. We have sign up and sign in. Both API returns a JWT token, and for the following APIs, we'll have to have the authentication header like this. This is the key, and value will start with bearer space then the JWT token. Okay, so this is required, and all other APIs except this auth controller is also requires authentication in the filter. Okay, so if we go to the security filter, we'll see that those APIs are whitelisted and any other request is authentication required. Okay, so let's directly jump into that. So this project is opened in IntelliJ here. You can open it in Cursor to continue. I have already opened it in Cursor. Okay, so what let's resume. So the project is open in Cursor AI. So what is our task now? In order to implement a API which will receive the file and store it on a dedicated file system in a path of our disk, we first of all have to have a database for the document to store in the database. Okay, so let's say a user X want to upload a Excel file. He may want to add some metadata with the file. So what is our purpose? We'll implement an API which will receive the file and insert an entry into the document table against that user. So the document table will have a foreign key of user ID so that we can understand which user actually uploaded the file. So we'll have to have a new table with user ID foreign key, and the table will have column like path of the file, etc. Path of the file, MIME type, created by, created at, etc. And the most important part for this API is successfully saving the uploaded file to a dedicated directory. So where do we want to save our file? That is a very critical business decision. You may want to store your file in AWS, or you can just save it on your storage server. Let's say you have a separate server and that is a Linux server. You have some SSD there. You want to store on the slash user local or slash var slash. Okay, so that should be configurable, and I'll have that in my application.properties with a custom property. Okay, so let's start cursoring. I'm typing here, since our auth APIs are implemented, I want to have a API which will handle the document upload. But first of all, I need to create a table for document in my PostgreSQL database, and also create a entity in this app table. The table will have a foreign key of user which will refer to the user table being used for authentication. So I know it will work with minimum detail, but I'm trying to be as verbose as I can to avoid any error, and I think this is the best way, because this way I am the driver and I'm driving how and what the AI generates. Okay, authentication. Okay, so our table creation and entity creation is done. The file will be saved on a path which will be defined via application properties. Since I am on Windows, for now I will use the dir of a folder of my C drive. Okay, so what more prompt should I do here? I think those things are enough. Let me know what else info you need to complete this task. Okay, so I'm in agent mode. Let's select the model. I'm selecting Cloud 3.5 Sonnet and pressing enter. Let's see what it does. CDMS document is the path which will be being used in this example. Okay, so there is an entity now called document and a new create document table v2 db migration script is generated. I think I have to execute this on the database, on my database tool like dbeaver, or in my case I'm using navigate. Okay, so I'm opening navigate. Let's open it, and in my Postgres, this is the database I'm using. Here we have three tables. Here we have three tables so far: roles, user roles, and users. So let's create a new query here, and this is under the DMS database. I'm pasting it here. Name of the table is documents, and now reference table is users. One important thing is references on delete and cascade. Okay, this is something to look for, because on delete cascade means on delete it will cascade the documents of that user. So this is kind of a design decision. In my opinion, this is good. When the user is deleted, there should not be any document of that user, but you may want to have those documents intact. That is completely understandable and fine, and in that case we will remove this part. Okay, so I'm running this SQL and it successfully executed, and if I refresh here, I'll see a new table called document. Here, as you can see, the ID is big serial and the primary key. So if you want to have a primary key with big int type in Postgres, you have to type that primary key big serial. So this way it will be auto increment. Let's go to the Cursor IDE. Even though I have just asked for a storage path, it configured lots of other things, which is actually very good, because in multipart there is a file size issue which you can handle, and you can also configure what kind of file you want to allow. Okay, so let's see what changes is configured here. Let's first accept all. This is the entity called document. Here the generation type is identity. This is something you want to look at if you want to understand what is document type identity means. If I go to document here, and click on generation type identity. As you can see that the value of primary key is delegated to the underlying database. Okay, if the type is sequence, and you have to configure a sequence. Okay, that's very interesting thing to look at. Okay, so our entity is configured, our database table is created. Let's see if it completed the task. Okay, let's go to our application properties to see the configuration. Those are the allowed filed. So in C, I have to create a folder called DMS for the documents. Let's just create a folder called DMS in our C drive. New folder called DMS. So the API is not implemented. If the API is implemented, I would see a controller file here, and it will call a service. So far, let's see what it have done. Before proceeding with the document upload API implementation, please confirm, is the storage path acceptable? I have created a dir in C drive and already uploaded my application properties. You may check. And all your opinion implementation is fine. Let's proceed with the following implementation. Okay, so actually I'm asking it to continue the implementation of controller, service, repository, and all other things. So first it is creating a repository, which is document repository. Okay, two method here, find by user and find by user, or order user order by created at descending. Also create a file storage service. So it is going bottom to top approach. First of all, it is implementing the entity, then repository, and then service. Then I guess it will implement the controller, and then the DDOs, request DDO and response DDO. I will check on IntelliJ if there is any syntax error, if the code actually works, runs successfully. Java code is better readable and more comfortable to read in IntelliJ than this VS Code, Cursor IDE. So let's accept all the changes and go to IntelliJ. And now I should have, yes, there is a controller called document controller, and it is only accepting a request param call file, which will be the key, and on the one metadata, which is description, and record is false. And authentication principal, this is the user principal, or the logged in user automatically generated when the request is authorized to this controller. So there is some filter in our application, and when Spring Boot application understand that this is an API which requires authentication, then it looks for the bearer authentication, and if it finds that, it decode the JWT and extract the user. If everything is fine, then it sets the user principal, which is the authentication principal, which is found with the annotation. And now this user is the user for which the JWT token was generated. Okay, so here the document upload document service is handling the file, multipart file. That means this file is actually containing the data uploaded from user in description and string and the user. So let's go to upload document. So in this upload document service, first we are storing the file with this store file method. Let's see how it is implemented. This store file method actually is a part of this file storage service IMPL. So in this constructor of this service, as you can see, we are configuring the paths, the default storage path, and allowed document types. Okay, those two things. And and also creating the directory to be safe. So after storing the file with this method, after storing this file, uh, after storing this file with this files.copy, we are returning a unique file name. I'll share the code for your review later so that you can understand how it is implemented. So for implementation looks good. File was stored and a unique file name was returned. Set the file name, but this multipart file is still here, which was received from the request, and the get original file name containing the file, the name of the file which is uploaded from the client side, and this file storage dot get file path is actually getting the path from this file name. Okay, so get file path is actually getting the path, nothing but a well formatted correct path, right? So this is actually doing some sanity checking. So document service is doing good. Document is uploaded. Document is saved on a storage. Database table is updated, and a response entity .ok is returned, which containing the one response of this document entity. Also, I personally do not recommend doing this because this will return the primary key number or ID number of the file. Okay. You can make it abstract by returning an entity or just returning 200 that successfully uploaded the file. So now everything is looking good. Let's try running this application here. And the application seems to be running fine. Now let's go to Cursor once again. Okay, so it already provided a curl for this request, which I was about to request for. So let's open Postman. Let's click on import and paste the curl and import into collection. The API is documents. The header is containing authorization, but I have to have a JWT token. So let's first get a token. This is the token. Copying the token and going to the upload API, putting the token after bearer and a space. Let's select this. I have two fields, file and description. Clicking on, let's clear everything in the server so that I can understand better, and click on send, and the response is returned with a file path name. So this is very vulnerable because this returning the full path of the server, also the primary key ID. I would not do this in production. Instead, I would do return additive. Okay, what would be the good practices? I'll discuss that at the later part of the video. So let's go to database now to see if the entry is there. Yeah, a new row is inserted. Now let's go to this directory to see if a new file which I uploaded is there. It is C drive DMS. Yeah, this is the file. Okay, so everything seems to be working fine. Now let's get into good practices. Here in the document controller, as you can see, two separate field is directly cached as request param in the multipart request. So since this is a multipart request, I could add a new DTO and instead catch the request params in the DTO with a annotation called request param or model attribute, which is used in Spring MVC. Okay, but response body, request body, those kind of annotations for JSON only. Okay, so when you are using multipart, it is no longer JSON because JSON doesn't support file uploading. If you want to send a file, you have to convert the request to multipart request. Okay, so you can find that in the header too. If I go to the header of this request, I'll see that the request is automatically converted to multipart form data, the content type here. Okay, so I would send this to a DTO and catch the DTO here, and I would return a DTO instead of returning the raw entity. Okay, and here I would do some sanity testing for the upload document file if the multipart is null. Okay, if the multipart is blank or etc. And here there are some exception for handling file. I would if there is an exception, I would not do any kind of operation. So all possible type of validation required to proceed to process with this request, I do all those things first, then proceed to saving the file in the storage. Because if you receive lots of requests and all those files are served on the store, then you have to have a strategy to clean those unused or expired files too. That is very important to automate a sustainable time, to have a sustainable time in the server without interfering, right? So document controller is the entry point, and by default we did not apply any pre-authorized type of request for this, because this API is open for all authorized user, and that is handled in the filter by Spring Security. So let me know what other good practices you would apply if you implement this in production. For now, I just tried to see how powerful Cursor AI can be with Java Spring with a simple application. If it can successfully implement and also import things in Java Spring. Okay, we have found that some of the thing was not directly resolved, like things in Spring Security, and there are lots of opinion thing was done with this AI. Okay, so that is a debatable thing. I hope you enjoyed watching this video with me. If you so, please hit the like button, and I plan to upload more similar exploring type of video in this channel. So if you're interested, please consider subscribing to my channel, and until next time, happy coding.